Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the 24th Annual Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Scholars Graduation Program. I am Akiba Abaka. I'm a former McNair student, and on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of the McNair program, I welcome you this evening. The McNair dinner is always an amazing event because it's a time when family, friends, students, faculty, everybody comes together to celebrate an amazing journey in the lives of our students. At this point, we would like to begin our program with the singing of Lift Every Voice and Sing by our band, Fulani Haynes Project. So I don't know if you all know this, but Dr. Ronald McNair, for whom this program is named, was an amazing scientist and one of the first Black astronauts in the NASA space project. But he was also a very accomplished jazz musician. He played the saxophone. So the McNair program is always happy to have a band in the house, and especially a jazz band. It really speaks to the spirit of Dr. McNair. So if we can just give it up for the Fulani Haynes and friends once more. And in the spirit of Dr. McNair, I'd like to welcome our next speaker, who will be speaking about the life of Ronald E. McNair. This next gentleman, Arthur Williams Jr., he was described to me as a future Rigonette, which is a name given to McNair students by Dr. McNair's brother, Carl McNair. And the Rigonette is just a distinction in honor of our coordinator, Mrs. Millicent Riggins, who's been with the program for 24 years. And I just, for those of you who know her, don't know her, if you just wave to the audience. Hi, Millie. You're looking fabulous as usual. Arthur Williams is a biochem major here at UMass Boston, and about 2-3 more years from now, he'll be on the stage accepting some grand McNair award. Welcome, Arthur.
Hello, everybody. Hope you've been having a good Friday. Right? Finally, it's Friday, right? Ronald E. McNair, PhD, was born in 1950 and died very sadly in 1986. And he said, "You are eagles, stretch your wings and fly to the sky." And of course, his life is testament to that, even at the very end of it. One of America's first black astronauts, Ronald E. McNair was a trailblazer who helped extend the world's frontiers. Born in 1950 to a struggling family in racially segregated Lake City, South Carolina, McNair never accepted second best. In high school, he became an honor student, Star Scout, ferocious football player, skillful musician, and karate champion, and valedictorian of his senior class. After graduating magna cum laude from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, he attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he performed some of the earliest experiments with high-pressure lasers and earned a doctorate's degree in physics. He then took a job as a staff physician at Carolina's Hughes Research Laboratories. In 1978, McNair joined the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Astronaut Candidate Program. He made his first space flight in 1984. And 2 years later, on January 28, 1986, mission specialist McNair boarded the Shuttle Challenger for a second journey into space. The spacecraft exploded 73 seconds after liftoff, killing 35-year-old McNair and his 6 colleagues, plunging a shocked world into mourning. McNair often told minority students, whether or not you reach your goal in life depends entirely on how well you prepare for them and how badly you want them. In his brief but brilliant career, he proved that neither poverty nor discrimination can defeat a determined individual. Equipped with faith, courage, and an unshakable will to win, Ronald E. McNair charted a path to the stars, not just for himself, but for all of us. Thank you.
So as I stand and watch Arthur deliver so eloquently the life of Dr. McNair, what's going through my mind is, he has the gait. He has the gait of a politician, and I'm like, why is that? Why is that? And I just checked in, and this is the grandson of Shirley Owens, Senator Shirley Owens, and his granduncle is Senator Bill Owens. So the stature, maybe we have some politics coming somewhere along the line. Excellent work. Great oration. Next, I would like to welcome to the stage one of the founding faculty members of the McNair program, Dr. Bill Hager. Sorry. We affectionately call him Doc. So usually I never say Dr. Hager, I just say Doc. So would like to at this point welcome Dr. Bill Hager to the stage.
I think it's good that I'm walking all the time at lunchtime. you need it for tonight. But I wanted to welcome all of you to the McNair dinner on behalf of Dean Andrew Grosofsky. Andrew Grosofsky is the PI on this grant proposal, and he would love to have been here, but he's down in University of Maryland, Baltimore County, discussing some of the techniques and programs and operations that we do in the University of Massachusetts Boston that has increased the retention rate of our students. And he does give his best wishes to the graduating students, and we'll see those on graduation day. Now, I always like to welcome students, family members, faculty, staff, Provost Winston Langley, and former McNair students who are returning with doctorate in hand sometimes. We always like that. We look out there now and we see several of you come in here that are maybe in your second or third year of graduate work, get your doctorates within the next 2 or 3 years, and that's what we're looking for. And our speaker tonight, Professor Kaylinda Gonzalez, is one of those who was an exceptional student in the classroom and the laboratory. She recently received her doctorate from Emory University in Georgia. This is our 24th annual graduation ceremony, as Akiba had said, and Millicent Riggins has been at all of these. Hundreds and hundreds of students have stood in the same place as you. I always like to start off the activities with a quote, and I'll take one from Ronald McNair. He always likes to say, is what he said at the time, was, before you can make a dream come true, you must first have one. So you first of all have to have that dream, and then you have to follow up on it to make sure it becomes true. Your dream now, this is the seniors, is to leave UMass Boston and go to graduate school. You've reached the first plateau of that dream, but new dreams and goals are now on the horizon. Remember that you'll always be a McNair scholar, now and forever. It is a lifetime achievement, but there's always much more to accomplish. I wanted to spend a little time on Ronald McNair and his legacy to the program and to the academics in general. We'll have some cross-references with Arthur Williams' very nice presentation. But I wanted to focus a little bit on Ronald McNair's accomplishment as a musician. He was a saxophonist and was planning on playing the saxophone from outer space. So we didn't really know about this until pretty recently. So before his fateful last space shuttle mission, he'd worked with the composer Jean-Michel Jarre on a piece of music for Jarre's then upcoming album, Rendezvous. It was intended that he would play a saxophone solo on board the Challenger with a live feed back to Earth. This would have been the first original piece of music to be played and recorded in space. Let's listen to this music as we go back in time. I think you'll get a sense of the time and music through this video. This was a very wretched experience for many of us. It happened over 28 years ago and was a sad day for the space program in America. There's always pluses and minuses in history. The plus was the establishment of the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program by Congress the very same year as the tragedy. McNair Scholars Program began in 1989. The program has provided inspiration and support for numerous students to go forth into graduate programs and receive advanced degrees. As I look at all of you out there, I remember the goals of the program to provide training and education for students from underrepresented segments of society for the attainment of the doctoral degrees. And it's generated numerous doctoral students from our programs and from the many programs across the country. And we're very proud of our accomplished graduates, and we're proud of the students in the graduate pipeline. You're all in the graduate pipeline right now. You might be sophomores or juniors or seniors, but you're going forward to get the graduate degree. Sometimes I like to go back in time to think about when we started the program and how far it has come since then. Nowadays, we separate the student research presentations from the annual dinner. It's a much better arrangement, and you'll get to see snippets of students' research activities on the videos that we'll show in the next few minutes. I do want to point out that Millicent Riggins was here from the very beginning of the program. It was a time of trial, testing, and much innovation, and Millie was present through all of this. She is ageless with respect to time and has survived the last 2 decades, still having more energy and endurance than most of us, especially today. We had a massive data block that we had to send down to the Department of Education and letters on that. And so she was furiously working to finish that, which finished about 4 o'clock today. So no matter what your problems are that you have, you can still accomplish them if you put your mind to it. We should give her a round of applause for her valiant efforts over the years. I also would like to thank Roxanne Harvey's at the back table, who's been on the ground to make sure all of the McNair scholars follow the path of truth and make sure they do well in their courses and be on time for all the events. The current McNair program has grown in status and program objectives. We now provide support in many areas of science and technology, bringing guest lectures in for up-to-the-date research discussions. Many of these guest lectures were brought here by UMass Boston graduates who are now doing their graduate work at that particular institution. It is a full cycle of opportunistic feedback that is being a lifetime McNair scholar. I'm always impressed about how much you help each other with the coursework and with life in general. I saw firsthand how well you work together academically and socially. The recent trip to Nantucket was a particular eye-opener with how you help prepare the meals and clean up afterwards. Also would like to thank my wife Dottie for her helpfulness preparing our last dinner on Nantucket, while the rest of us listened to the panel of experts on best practices in academia from graduate school to full professorships. In closing, we welcome all of you to this portion of the program. I hope you remember this last step as an undergraduate student and will direct your energies for success, never forgetting the McNair program and the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Remembering Ronald McNair, your eagles, stretch your wings and fly to the sky.
Listening to Dr. McNair's work in the video presentation, thank you, Dr. Hager, Doc. Listening to Dr. McNair play, I just thought, what a perfect combination of art and science. He was very representational of that, and the notion of dreaming and having a vision and following through. The next segment of our program reflects that in some sense. We have the art, which is the video presentations, and then we have the dreams, and the research and the science and the work that our students have been doing. So here's a moment for all the family members and friends to see a little bit of the hard work and what this is all about, and to learn some scientific terms and all of that great stuff. It's the moment where you say, oh, that's what she's been doing, or that's what he's been doing for the past 4 years. So at this point, we present the video presentations.
My name is Rebecca Michelle, and I have 2 majors. They're biology and psychology. I guess I am very appreciative of the opportunity that I've been given. I don't know if I would have been involved in research like I am now if it wasn't for the McNair program. I am very, very busy ever since I joined the McNair program, and it's a good kind of busy. Like, I feel like I am being progressive.
That are a first generation born because they have a really dark beard you incorporated into it. But after they She came to talk to me about her interests. And so just out of her own interest with no class credit or no anything like that, she started coming to my lab meetings. She started thinking about some of these really tough scientific questions on her own.
So I was involved with more like observing in a lab for a little while, and she was just like, do you want to do your own study? You could be involved in the McNair program. So I think that's a real example of how much she took an interest in me and leading me towards certain directions. And I've learned a lot. I think she has the perfect balance of giving me independence and supporting me.
The mentor-mentee relationship in science is so important, especially because it's the last bastion of the apprenticeship kind of system where you can learn about science through reading, you can learn about science through talking, but it's in the doing that you really learn the scientific process and how to think and how that all works. And so it's in the lab, at the bench, Rebecca and I working together through a process of how do I look at this data, how do I do this experiment, how do I cut this brain into sections that's going to allow me to answer the question that I want to answer.
I'm doing another one today. She will never give me the answers to anything, but she will always, like if I have a question, she will kind of lead me in a certain direction. So I kind of felt like I was doing it all by myself, but she really gave me that support that I needed.
I think Rebecca is going to be well prepared for any future that she decides to pursue, because all of the things that I've seen in her, starting from just coming to see me out of the blue because this was something she was interested in, pursuing that really doggedly and consistently, and she's whip smart, and got really right into the literature at a level that I wasn't expecting, honestly, and she did so well with that I gave her her own project once she came into the McNair program. And anything you ask her to do, she's game for, and I think all of those qualities will take her very far.
Well, right after graduation, I am planning on going to a post-bac program. I applied to the Hot Metal Bridge program in Pittsburgh. So I want to prepare myself for graduate school and kind of amp up my, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, my competitiveness, I guess.
I was mentoring Tomas Hernandez. Tomas was just an exceptional student. He was asking all these incisive and creative questions, and he was the kind of student that would stay after class and have follow-up questions and sort of walk with me, and so we had these lively discussions. We now have a series of about 6 different studies that we've done with Tomas, and many of the studies have been at his suggestion to add certain things. So we added in looking at stigma in guns. We were looking at symbolic racism and mental illness, and also disgust. And he was the first person to sort of bring this up in the lab.
Symbolic racism.
And then this was something that became important for us to look at. United States, right? This was the one that we asked for. And here is Tomas, like throughout the class, just sort of spot on and bringing up really important things, really keeping the class going in a way. Because, you know, a class is only as good as the students that you're teaching, and he really created a wonderful environment there, and that to continue on into our lab.
My name is Marie Joseph. My major here at UMass Boston is psychology. There are many times when I just wanted to quit going to school. I mean, I remember 3 months into my freshman year, I was like, I'm quitting, this isn't for me. And I've had so many wonderful teachers and professors, especially Dr. Donaldson and Dr. Abby Eisenhower, who were the two best people that I could have ever met. And they told me, you know, just keep going, it's gonna get better. And because of them, I'm finally at the end and I get to walk across the stage, and it's been great. And I got to know Roxanne, who's been awesome with McNair. She's been on top of me to get materials in, and I really appreciate her for that. And she was able to talk to me, and she helps me understand what I needed to do, and they've all been just such great support. And I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for these 3 women.
My name is Rose Joachim, and I'm majoring in biochemistry at UMass Boston. Biochemistry to me is everything. I love it. Last summer I went to an internship research program at the University of Texas. It was great, and with the McNair program also, I go to conferences with them, so I see others in their environment. I've presented with them, and I went to a SACNAS conference. I presented there my research during the summer. With them, I feel like I am becoming a greater scientist.
So essentially, we take the students to the next level from rather than simply getting satisfied with bookish knowledge. We are taking them to the experimental level and teach all the advanced techniques so that they can become researchers. Rose project deals with sclerotization of insect cuticle.
And sclerotization is basically when a fly lays an egg, it becomes a larvae, and the larvae becomes a cuticle, and it's hardening until it becomes another fly. So I'm looking at the pathway, that cycle, the enzymes that are involved in that pathway.
The Rose work is a very important contribution to this process. She is very, very interested and motivated, highly motivated to pursue graduate education, and I strongly stand by her and wish her all the best.
Right now I'm applying for grad school, so I have to take a year off to wait for the answers and interviews and all that, but I am going to grad school for biochemistry.
My name is Sabrina Ossid, and I'm a psychology major here at UMass Boston. So right now I'm studying at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. So for my final project, I worked in Professor Eisenhower's lab, and we looked at what factors help autistic children better transition into early childhood.
She's done a lot of work for us over the past year, and lots of data entry, data management, and data coding for us. Specifically, she's been working on a project called the Smooth Sailing Study.
It's been a great experience. It's an amazing lab, tons of knowledge in the meetings, and it's really just an ideal setting to work at.
There's so much personal experience that she can actually bring to a brainstorming session that I think comes from her unique experience, and that really enriches our academic collaborations as well.
So after graduation, I plan on taking at least a year off to work in clinical settings. I enjoyed my time working. I kind of want to pique my other interests to see what it is exactly that I'm interested in before I dive headfirst into a PhD program.
My name is Chrismelly Paul, and I'm majoring in chemistry. I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I was born and raised there. I came here when I was 11. My mom and my dad never went into college, so they made sure that we always had education and encouraged us to go to college, especially here, because they call this the land of the opportunities. They always made sure that we had the right education and wanted us to go further than they did in life.
Chrismelly and I met last May, I think, when I arrived here as a postdoc and she started her research work in our lab. What we did is established a small library of compounds that should work against Alzheimer's disease. So we did the chemical work, and we have partners in the biology department testing our compounds, and that's what's undergoing right now.
Right now I'm interested in medicinal chemistry because that's what I'm doing, but I would also like to work in environmental chemistry. I would love to do those, both of them, medicinal chemistry and environmental chemistry, but I'm more towards the side of environmental chemistry. I think I'm gonna go with that.
She did a good job in her studies so far, and I would wish her to pursue her goals, and I think that she can achieve what she wants to do, which is probably doing a master's, going to grad school. She has the capabilities to do this.
Right now I'm gonna apply to do my master's here at UMass, and later on I'm gonna be applying to do my PhD in a different school.
My name is Christopher Mercedes, and I am a biology major at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. For my final project, we studied the enzyme polyphenol oxidase in barley, and polyphenol oxidase is basically the enzyme that's responsible for the browning that you notice in fruits and vegetables whenever you damage the tissue. I work in the emergency department at North Shore Medical Center in Salem Hospital. I've always been interested in the human body, so I figured if I study biology, I can get more in-depth knowledge on that and then figure out what I was going to do after I graduated.
Basically, what we're looking at is we're looking for changes in the absorption. I've been pushing him towards going to graduate school, getting his PhD, and also coming back to be one of the educators that are at UMass Boston or other schools. Chris was one of the students that was like one of the leaders. He, whenever you see Chris, you almost have to smile. You know, he gives you a big smile, you give a smile back.
He's always been a guiding hand for me, always been there. When school was getting tough, when assignments were getting hard, he was always there to give me moral support. I've known him since day one of freshman year, when I joined his community, in the freshman success community, and he's basically just introduced me to many aspects of the university that I probably wouldn't have known. My plan is to be a doctor as well as be a researcher. I don't want to just limit myself to one or the other. I've noticed that I've jumped from many jobs, and I feel like I couldn't limit myself to just doing one thing for my entire life.
Basically, what we'll be taking is all. One of the things with Chris is that he has so many choices that what he can do. He could probably be a jazz musician if he wanted to be.
I mean, I love the sciences. I think they're so broad that there's anywhere that you could take it. Like, you don't necessarily have to do one thing. You can do multiple things and interrelate multiple things that interest you. That's why I did the sciences.
Can I get another round of applause for our scientists, our researchers, our McNair scholars? Amazing, 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 groundbreaking work. I know the families at this point are beaming with pride, and very much so deserved pride for your McNair scholars. The theme tonight seems to be a little bit of art and science blending. Our keynote speaker, when I was a McNair student, we were both in the same cohort, and I remember passionately talking about dance and ballet with her. And you know, the arts and the sciences, they tend to get separated, but in the way of processes, they're very similar. So I'm not surprised to see another amazing artist moonlighting as a scientist. And one of the, Kaylinda often talked about her research frantically and passionately, and her dance background. She was a ballet dancer. professionally trained ballet dancer, right? Did I get that right? But she also passionately talked about her mentor, Dr. Alexa Pollock, who is a professor in the biology department. And I remember when I first met Dr. Pollock and she came in and I said, wow, you are the person who has Alexa so excited. I said that in my head. I've been in awe of her so long, I never actually said it out loud. So just an impressive woman who has inspired the work of another impressive woman, Dr. Alexa Pollock.
I'm very, very pleased to be here tonight to introduce Dr. Kalinda Gonzalez. Doesn't that sound good? That sounds great, doesn't it? And to welcome her back to her home at UMass Boston, where the spark of her interest to pursue the science that she's pursuing and has been pursuing for the last 9 years sort of started. And I first met Kalinda, now I'm going to be informal. I first met Kalinda, she was in my neurobiology class, and she was in the laboratory section. And, you know, there's many students in the laboratory section, but she stood out. She took charge, she was interested, and then even after that class, she approached me and she asked if she could work in the lab. And I said yes, and she came and she joined the lab, and she stayed there for at least 2 years and did an honors project. And as she was working and working, she became more and more interested. I had her working with rats. Once she graduated, she was in the McNair program, which she loved, and it was a great support for her. And then she knew she wanted to go to graduate school, but she actually took a post-baccalaureate sort of research opportunity at the NIH and moved from Boston down to Maryland, where she worked for a year. Again with rats, and again in the parts of the brain that are involved in motor disorders and Parkinson's disease. And then after that experience, she went to Emory University in Georgia, and that's where she has been until this fall. And there at Emory, she actually worked with 2 different mentors, one in anatomy, the other in physiology, and she actually moved on to primates, and so she did a lot of work with monkeys. She graduated, oh, and I should say that she had a first author paper that came out last year in the Journal of Comparative Neurology, right, Kalinda? And typically, how many people have written papers and tried to get them published? Any McNair students here? You've written papers? Okay. So when you're writing a peer-reviewed article and you submit it to a journal, it goes out for review. Typically 2 or 3 reviewers, and they come back and they bring it to the editor and they, you know, say maybe accepted or accepted with revisions. She actually had this paper come back as a first author paper, accepted as is, no revisions. I've never heard of that before. That's very rare and very commendable. So she graduated, earned her doctorate in the fall, and then moved immediately, as she's such a diligent worker, to New York City, where she joined a laboratory at Columbia University. And so she's been up at the medical center at Columbia University since the fall. Throughout her training, she's received multiple grants of support from the NIH and from other sources. And so I'm very, very thrilled and pleased and honored to be here to introduce her. So welcome back to your home at UMass Boston. Come on up.
Well, feeling a little emotional from all the love in this room right now. I'm so proud of you guys and to see the accomplishments that you have achieved. And I know how hard it is, and it will be worth it in the end. You know, as everybody keeps saying, Ronald E. McNair always said, just spread your wings as an eagle and fly, and you'll end up in the right spot. So that's pretty much my take-home message. So I think Millie asked me, well, she asked me 2 years ago to actually come and be the keynote speaker. And I said, Millie, I'm not done with my PhD yet. And she's like, well, come on, girl. And I was like, I know, I'm trying. So, you know, and then the last year she asked me again. I said, I'm getting there, I promise, next year, Millie. And now here I am, so I'm just, thank you. Finally! It finally happened. You know, I know it feels like getting your bachelor's is never going to happen, but it all does in due time. As Alexia said, it's been 9 years, almost 10, since I've been here, and this is such a great way to come back. So thank you, Millie. Thank you, the McNair program, for inviting me, because it's just really special to be here. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is my journey to becoming a PhD. It's a little bit unusual, but I think most of us probably sitting in this room have an unusual story. So where did it all begin? Where did I become interested in science? So it actually happened in high school, even though I didn't really know it. So I always enjoyed my science classes. I wasn't the most enthusiastic one, but I definitely enjoyed it and I had a good time. And my biology teacher, Mr. Pestrak, actually realized that I was good in the lab, good with hands-on, so he asked me to be his lab aide. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? So I actually first started working in a lab back then, but it wasn't research, it was to help with his lab as he set it up for classes and whatnot, dissections, things like that. But where I received my strongest scores was in English. So all 4 years in high school, I had straight A's in English. Everybody was like, oh, you should become a literature professor. Oh, you know, go to school for English. And I was like, okay, you know, but I don't know if I was really feeling that at the time, even though I enjoyed it. And as we know, we're all a little bit artistic, aren't we? So I did love literature, I still do, but, you know. And I also worked at a surf shop. So I was in retail, working at a surf shop. I'm from South Florida. It's like where it was a cool, hip thing back then. I'm not gonna tell you what year. So I didn't know what I was really gonna do. And as my friend over here, it's very good to see you, said, I was a ballet dancer throughout my childhood. I wanted to be a professional ballerina in New York City. This was my goal since I was 3 years old. And when I say goal, ask my mother who's sitting here. I was very, very determined. I fell in love with it. It was my passion. But unfortunately, sometimes, you know, life intervenes, AKA my ankles. And I had a lot of injuries. I sprained my ankles a lot from being on point shoes when you stand on your toes. So that didn't happen. My doctor said, if you don't stop dancing, you won't be able to walk eventually. You're gonna shred every ligament in your ankle. I was like, oh my goodness, that's not a good idea. So I actually listened to a doctor for once and said, okay, maybe I should stop. So I was in physical therapy quite a bit throughout my, probably I think around 10 years old, until about 14, 15. I was in physical therapy all the time for my ankles. Well, when I was finally discharged, my physical therapist asked me if I just wanted to have a job there since I was there all the time. So I started working as a physical therapy aide and realized that I actually really, really enjoyed working with patients. You know, a lot of people had orthopedic or sports injuries, a lot of elderly people. I really enjoyed their great stories and all the knowledge that they had. I said, oh, maybe this is something I can do. So I applied to a physical therapy program, and I was actually accepted, and this is Northeastern University here in Boston. And as you will see, let's see, 1996 to 2000, I hate to admit it, folks, but I was there for 4 years. It was a 6-year program. I enjoyed it very much. I got to work in a variety of medical settings. So they have a co-op program where you work for 6 months, go to school 6 months. I worked in inpatient, outpatient, subacute rehab. I was working with all kinds of things. I knew I loved medicine. I knew I was passionate about helping people, so I thought I was in the right place. Then I realized that Boston Ballet has their own physical therapy office, so I said, here we go. I can get my foot back in the door where the ballerinas are hanging out, you know, and I can help them rehabilitate and hopefully go to all of their performances for free. However, I had an ankle reconstruction while I was at Northeastern University. My ankle sprained just walking down the street, and that was it. I had to undergo surgery. It almost was a 2-year recovery. So I was in physical therapy every single day. It was pretty painful, to say the least. And then that meant that I was not excited to get up in the morning and go to work as a physical therapist anymore. I was burnt out. This is something that really you have to pay attention throughout your life. How do you feel in the morning when you get up? Does what you're doing make you get up? I know we have to pay the bills, believe me. I totally understand. But if you're given this opportunity as being a McNair Fellow, try to think about this a little bit. What gets you to get up and out of bed? Because it's not easy, this road that you're heading on, but you can do it. But I had to make one of the hardest decisions, and especially my parents were a little nervous, and I said, I have to change my program after 4 years. So I ended up at UMass Boston because I could claim state residency. I'll be honest. I was living here long enough that I could afford tuition here. I couldn't afford Northeastern anymore. It was just too expensive. I said, I've heard great things about UMass. So I applied and I said, you know what, I'm gonna come here and I'm going to do biology and pre-med so that I can go to medical school, because I wanted to work with patients and kind of continue that track, just a little bit different from physical therapy. So because of all my experience as a physical therapist, I was able to work as a nursing assistant in the emergency room at Brigham and Women's Hospital. I also needed to pay the bills. So they pay really well there if anybody's looking for a job, and you can get certified as a CNA. The hours are hard, but the experience is wonderful, and the community that I made there has probably influenced my life forever. So, but I was working there full time, going to school, taking classes. I'm sure all of you know how hard that is, but we do it, right? And I was planning on going to medical school. As I said, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon or work in the emergency room, until I met Millicent Riggins. And I became a Ronald E. McNair Fellow. So when she approached me, I think it was, I don't even know, was there email back then? She approached me and asked for a meeting with me, and I came and sat down in her office. I had no idea what she wanted with me. And she's sitting there with a folder, all of these papers in it, and looking through them, and had my grades and all of these other things. I'm like, oh, why do you have a folder full of my grades in your hands? She goes, I've noticed that you're really good at lab work. I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy lab. I'd much rather be in the lab, hands-on, than taking an exam. No offense, professors, but I had a hard time with exams, you know. But in the lab, I felt like that's where I really was able to apply things and really learn what was being taught in the classroom. And she's like, have you ever thought about being a researcher, you know, research scientist? And I was like, no, I don't even know if I really know everything that entails. And she goes, well, you would have to go get your PhD. I was like, okay. This is where the conversation needs to end now, because I don't even know what a PhD is. I had no idea. It's not like I grew up in the boonies or anything. I just didn't, and I was surrounded by wonderful faculty, but I just didn't, nobody really ever teaches you, right, what a PhD actually is. I didn't think it was somebody that looks like me, that's for sure. You know, I had no idea. And so I was like, no, Millie, I'm going to medical school. You know, she's like, well, listen, she goes, you want to work in a lab, you love neuroscience, you know, Dr. Alexia Pollack has agreed, you know, why don't we just give this a shot? She goes, and I'm going to train you, and I'm going to form and shape and mold you, no matter how hard it is, into a great scientist. And I was like, you know what I was thinking in my head. I mean, no offense, Millie has heard this before. I thought she was a little cuckoo. I really, you know, it wasn't that I didn't believe in myself, but I just still didn't understand and grasp what a PhD was. So I decided to trust her. I said, okay. She goes, well, I'm going to bet you when you're done and you graduate, you will be going to grad school. I was like, yeah, medical school. Okay, we'll agree to disagree. So I joined Alexia's lab. And so this was my actual first research experience. And it was a neuroscience lab. So for everybody out here, in case you're not familiar, you study the brain or the peripheral nervous system, which includes the spinal cord and all of the nerves in your extremities. So we studied the behavior and the potential therapeutic drugs in a rodent model of Parkinson's disease. So these are the little guys that I worked with a lot. I took care of them. I had to make sure they were fed and everything was, you know, and I love animals, so it was kind of a good deal. And then Alexia told me that I got to perform brain surgery. I was like, okay, this is cool. Brain surgery, okay. Because I loved surgery, not for me, but, you know, to do it on others. And so she taught me how to actually perform brain surgery on a rat whose brain is about this size. So I fell in love with it. I know it's kind of weird, but us scientists are a little bit different. And she was the best teacher possible. She was so patient. I highly recommend anybody who's interested to, you know, go and spend a couple hours in her lab, maybe a week, just to see if you like it, what we call a rotation, because it really was a great experience. And then also I found out that you were able to present data at conferences. So you do all this research, right? Well, how do you communicate it to other researchers? You go to conferences like where the dean is right now and you talk to other scientists about it. They give you feedback on it, whether it's good or bad, but they still give you feedback and we all need it, right? That's the only way we learn. And then McNair program was paying for me to go to it, and I was applying to all these scholarships for first-generation college students, underrepresented groups, and they were all paying for me to fly around the country and present something that I loved. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is awesome. So I did it, and then I finally graduated before you knew it, and I was sitting here almost 10 years ago where you are now thinking, you know, even though I had this cap on, I didn't kind of believe it. I didn't know exactly if it was going to work out for me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to afford to go to grad school and do everything and pay the bills. And I had a lot of, not anxieties, just I think very typical fears that a lot of us have. Or how about, can I cut it? Am I going to be able to cut it in grad school? But through the McNair program, my self-esteem was definitely boosted. I mean, I knew how to go to a very fancy dinner and which fork to pick up, and I knew how to form a presentation and make a poster, and how to dress, and how to speak to others, you know, to look at them in the eye, even though I was so nervous. So I really, you know, it was a great accomplishment in my life, and I'll never forget it. So Millie won the bet. However, I was given the opportunity to work at the NIH with Dr. Judy Walters, and actually I worked at the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. So what happened is I went and I won a Minority Trainee Research Forum Award. It's called MTRF. I think it's through TRIO. And they flew me down, and it was at the NIH, and I presented, and then I met Judy. And they're like, have you guys heard about this Post-Baccalaureate program? So I put the website here, and if anybody needs it, my contact information will be at the end. But this is something I would really advise you guys to look at. You get to go to the NIH, you work there for like a year or two, you get paired up in whatever division of the NIH that is. Since I'm interested in movement disorders, such as Parkinson's disease, that's why I went to NINDS. And they pay you. It's not a ton, but you can live on it, I promise. It's worth it, and believe me, once you put this on your CV and you apply to grad school, for whatever reason, it's, you know, it's like gold or something, I don't know. So, but it was a great experience because you're at the NIH, they fund like 80% of research in this country. So it's really was a good experience for me to see what is it like here and what is the community like. So I continued to study Parkinson's disease, and I actually this time did electrophysiology. And so I'm just showing you an image here of what we can actually do. So electrophysiology means that you're actually going into the brain and you're recording or you're listening to neurons, so cells in your brain, and looking at their activity. So in Parkinson's, what happens is that this activity that you see here will actually change. And it's and now they even do things like deep brain stimulation, which they put an electrode in, and they're sending electrical signals to revamp that electrical activity. So I had a lot of fun, and here's some neurons, and you have electrodes. So it was just a different technique. I was just showing you because sometimes people don't know what electrophysiology is, but it was a really great technique. I did more surgeries, so I was really glad Alexia taught me. Judy realized very quickly that I was very devoted to, you know, getting that 100% lesion, so I did a lot of surgeries. And then at the same time, I was able to have the ability to apply to grad school. So NIH, if you're part of this program, they will, you go to talks and different things where they teach you how to apply to grad school. And I know that sounds silly, but believe me, you have to be taught how to apply to go to grad school. It is not easy, and I'm sure Millie has said this many times. And again, my information will be at the end if anybody has questions on how to do that. So I applied to, let's see, I applied to 8 grad schools, and I had 5 or 6 interviews, I can't exactly remember. And Emory was I really wanted to go though, and that was because of the faculty there, the support of the program. So when you go and interview, first of all, they fly you there, and they pay for everything. I was still in shock by that. They don't do that for medical school. Nothing against medical school, I'm just letting you know. For grad school, if you apply, they will pay for you to go there. I know. Yeah, Millie. So the beauty about that is that you get to go and you meet some people. I still run into those people at conferences that I interviewed with, and we're still friends. So it's kind of a fun experience. They wine and dine you. They want you. It's a very weird and surreal experience. And I know probably a lot of people don't believe me, but they wine and dine you. They want you. If they send you for that interview, they want you there. And believe me, this McNair program trained me on how to behave, because there was a lot of bad behavior. You know, I mean, they take you out for drinks and this and that, and I'm sure you guys can all imagine what happens with some people, but because the McNair program taught me, hey, that's for later, but here, this is business and you can have fun, but you want to present yourself as well as possible, because unfortunately, when people see my last name, sometimes they think I'm going to come right out and start speaking Spanish right away. So, you know, especially as a female too, I had to make sure that I was representing myself and respecting as Ronald E. McNair would want us to. So I was accepted and into neuroscience. So how it works is that it's 2 years of classes, which is kind of like a master's, and then 4 years of research, or it's different for every program. And your tuition, your stipend, and your insurance are all paid for by the school. So I did not pay for anything. I took out a couple extra loans just to help with other things, but you do not pay. They pay for you. This is very competitive. Once they accept you, there's no weeding out process. You're there. It's not like medical school where they're going to weed you out. They accept 300 people, 50 end up there. They accept, let's say, 10 to 20 people at the most, and then you're there until you finish. They completely support you, especially at Emory. So you take classes based on your specific interests, which is a lot of fun. You do lab rotations to figure out who you want to work with. Your advisors and assist you through the whole entire process. It always depends on what school you're going to, but when you go and interview, ask them, how much do you work with your students? How many hours a week? My advisors will meet with me almost every week. I needed it. That's just, everybody needs something a little bit different. I know some of you are like, I don't want that, but it was just something that I need structure. So it was good for me, but it's a great support. I was there 7 years, and I worked with primates. So these are rhesus macaque monkeys, and I worked on these with these animals here at Yerkes National Primate Center, which is at Emory University. There's only 6 primate centers in the country. One of them was just closed at Harvard, unfortunately, because of funding. So it's a very unique experience. And while I was in grad school, I underwent 2 more surgeries, another ankle reconstruction and a knee surgery. But here I am. And you can still get through it. Once you get to grad school, all the crazy stuff seems to happen. I don't know why, but it does, but you'll get through it. And then what was really great is that because they knew I was a McNair Fellow, they gave me an opportunity to recruit at conferences. And I'm sure you guys have been to some, like there's SOCNAs, there's ABCAMs, there's all kinds of conferences where people like we go, and they paid me and flew me around to recruit young, smart, bright people like you guys that happen to be walking up and down the aisle. They will waive your application fee to grad school. So when you go to these conferences, make sure to get a business card from everybody, and don't be afraid to ask for that, because application fees can be over $100 per school sometimes, but they almost will always waive it for you if you ask them. So anyways, it was just a really great opportunity. This was my 3rd research experience, and it was with Dr. Yolan Smith and Dr. Thomas Wickman. So Dr. Yolan Smith has a PhD. He was the director of the neuroscience program. And Dr. Thomas Wickman is actually an MD, and he's a neurologist. So at Emory is a very collaborative environment. That's another thing if you're interested in clinical, but you don't want to go to medical school, go to a university that collaborates with MDs. You'll get to work with them all the time. It's wonderful. And so I performed neuroanatomy in Dr. Smith's lab and electrophysiology in awake monkeys in Dr. Wickman's lab. It was pretty great. And just to give them a little bit of kudos here, so I'm sure you guys recognize who this gentleman right here is, Muhammad Ali. So as you know, unfortunately, Muhammad Ali has Parkinson's. Well, this guy right here, Dr. Maylon DeLong, developed deep brain stimulation, and he has a very close relationship with Muhammad Ali, who these guys have met a lot, and these guys did their postdoc with Dr. Maylon DeLong. So you never know where your life will lead you. You could meet someone like Muhammad Ali, a great person in our history who has done so much, you know. So it really is kind of funny when you start to develop your science tree and look at it and say, oh my goodness, this is part of my science tree, how can this possibly be? But it's really just kind of a fun, cool experience. And my dissertation title, which I don't know if it's gonna really mean much, but I studied cholinergic interneurons and their distribution and synaptic inputs in the primate putamen. So I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of science and what you can actually do if you're interested in neuroscience. And so my goal was to determine the synaptic inputs. That means what cells are talking to striatal cholinergic interneurons, which ones are modulating their activity, which ones are regulating if they get excited or inhibited or whatnot. And I did this in, like I said, in the primate tissue, in the striatum. And so why these neurons were interesting is because they're involved with goal-directed and habit learning. So when you're moving, like as a ballerina, and you have a purpose, and there's a goal involved, these neurons will either be active or not. They're very tied into a system. They're also tied in with reward, so drug addiction. They've been shown recently to have a role in drug addiction. Their activity becomes abnormal after drug addiction is reinstated after withdrawal. And also they have a role in Parkinson's disease. Actually, the first treatment for Parkinson's was an anticholinergic drug to inhibit their activity. And now it's all about dopamine. But we're getting back to acetylcholine again. So, but anyway, so this is the neurons stained in the brain. So these are actually brain cells, and they have a beautiful morphology. These are their dendrites, axons, and they can receive synaptic inputs from other neurons or other cells all over these extremities, you can kind of think of them as. So what I did in grad school is I did some electron microscopy. So it's not a light microscope, it's actually an electron microscope, and you can magnify things up to 100,000 times, 150,000 times, and this is actual brain cells. So these are just pieces of a brain cell. So if you look here, it's like if I just cut this area in half, or a cross section, this is actually what you'll see. So I know it's a little bit difficult to see, so I'm gonna do that. So there's different labels that you can use with antibodies to look at different proteins and look at, does this type of neuron that expresses parvalbumin contact this type of neuron that expresses acetylcholine? And so you can look for these different types of things at the electron microscopy level, and then you can quantify them and make a schematic that looks like this. And then, so what my findings ended up being after grad school was what I was able to do is actually create the first map of all the synaptic connectivity of cholinergic interneurons in the primate putamen. So this is not rodent, this is actually a primate that is a monkey that is most closely associated with us, and it actually has a very similar brain circuitry. So this is just kind of some of the things that you can do. And after you successfully defend your thesis, you get one of these very stylish outfits. I know you guys are really jealous that I have one of these. And of course, you get your PhD. So when I first saw this, I was so excited. I was almost in tears, and I had chills all over, like this is gonna happen. And then I took it out of the bag. I was like, I'm not wearing this. But I did, obviously, because I was just excited, and everybody looked silly together, right? And these are my advisors here, Yolan and Thomas, who as Alexia, I just owe so much. They did so much for me. So what can you do with a PhD in science? A lot of people ask us this, and I'm sure all the family members probably wonder too, because we didn't know, we had no idea. So there's a lot of different things you can actually do. You can be a professor, we have a lot of professors here in the room, and that means that you can teach and you can continue to do research in a lab. But you can also work in industry, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard about pharmaceutical companies. They're not all evil. There's a lot of good work that comes out of them, and it's just a different type of environment than academia, but still, you're working in a lab doing research. You can also become a drug patent lawyer. I have two friends that have done this now. They make really good money, but you have to become a lawyer, and sometimes the law offices will pay for you to go to law school, which is very interesting. You can be a medical liaison, you can be a science journal editor, and you can also be a host of a cool science show on TV like Cosmos. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Neil deGrasse Tyson has come out with this new show on Sunday nights called Cosmos, and it's pretty wild. He's pretty eccentric. I love this guy. And he's up here in New York City right now near Columbia University. So, you know, or you can look like Dumbledore from Harry Potter or Albert Einstein. But as you can see, I don't look like that. Most of our professors here do not look like that. So even though we're often told this is the face, this can be the face too. So what I chose actually was the academic track. I'm gonna give it a shot. I know you probably hear a lot about funding, this, that, and the other, but don't get discouraged, don't give up. If it's your dream, just give it a shot. What's the worst? It doesn't work out? Okay, you do the next thing. At least you have a degree that can get you moving somewhere else. So right now my title is postdoctoral scientist, so it just means I have my PhD. It's almost like a residency for MDs. It's just to give you a little bit more experience before you have your own lab, which I'm grateful for. At first I was like, but now I'm like, I need it. And this is my new advisor, Dr. Tomas Guilarte. He's actually from Cuba. He moved here when he was around 10 years old and worked his way up into the field, ended up getting his PhD at Johns Hopkins. They liked him so much they gave him a faculty position at Johns Hopkins, and now Columbia University has recruited him, and he's the chair of environmental health sciences. So he is a real inspiration to me, and the minute I met him, I knew we were both fired up about science. We just couldn't get enough of each other, and so I'm really fortunate, I feel like, to be here. And he also applied me for a provost fellowship. So 5 people in the whole university that have a postdoc received this fellowship, and I was blessed enough to be one of them. And it's just unbelievable. But because of him believing in me and seeing the potential, he knew I was a McNair fellow, he knew my background, he knew how much I gave back to helping people like us get into research and understanding and knowing and loving research. So he did this for me, and I'm very touched by it. And so now my project is to determine the neuropathology of an environmentally induced form of Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is not very genetic as much as we know right now. So I was thinking maybe it's environmentally induced. So now I'm actually in the School of Public Health. I'm not in the School of Medicine anymore. So Tomas is trying to bring together the two worlds, right? Like all of us who do a lot of bench work science, we're doing experiments, and then those that do epidemiology and bring us all together so that our work has more of a clinical aspect, which is really where it's kind of moving right now. So I'm doing neuroanatomy again, because this is what my obsession is now, probably for the rest of my life. And I'm also learning some new molecular techniques. And I'm looking at a monkey model of manganism. And so manganism is caused from abnormal exposure to manganese. It's actually a trace element that's found in the environment. So it's actually in the periodic table of elements here. And it's kind of a little bit scary, but there are actually big areas like this full of manganism, or manganese. And a lot of steel workers are exposed to it, a lot of coal workers. Now it's in some drinking water, even in New England, in abnormal amounts. And you do need some, for your system, you do need some. That's why sometimes supplements, they're selling these manganese supplements, but as with supplements, I'm sure you all know, just be careful because too much manganese is not good, and I'll show you in a second. And it's also found in batteries. So it's something that is found in our environment, and they have found that actually if you expose monkeys to manganese, they will get Parkinson's-like symptoms. So they will get bradykinesia, which means a slowness of movement, and they'll also have abnormal movements, unsteady gait, so when they're walking, they kind of fall a lot, and then also cognitive deficits, so like their working memory, depression, all different kinds of things happen. However, the big twist is that people with manganism are unresponsive to therapies that are used to treat people with Parkinson's. So this is really bizarre. You would think it looks like Parkinson's, we treat it like Parkinson's. Unfortunately, it's not. So what is the neuropathology then? What neurons are dying in this disease? So my whole goal here in my postdoc, which will probably be around 3 years, is to identify the neurons. These are the striatocholinergic interneurons that I just showed you that I studied in grad school. I'm just trying to show you how everything can kind of be connected and eventually in your career. So I said, I'm gonna look at striatocholinergic interneurons because I'm obsessed with these guys. I know everything about them. They're involved in things that are involved with manganism, Parkinson's. And so here you'll see the neurons in normal, healthy brain. And then you see these are after you treat the brain, or you treat the animal with manganese. And you can see they don't look like spiders anymore. These are actually kind of called spidery neurons because they have so many processes. and you see those processes dying, and actually the cells are dying. This has not been published yet. This is something that I just recently found, and I'm fired up again because I just feel like it's just so exciting. Nobody really knew. Everybody was looking at the dopaminergic system. So it's kind of exciting. You know, these are the little things you gotta relish, guys. You gotta relish the small things because it will get you the motivation to keep going. So that's where I'm at now, and if I have any good old-fashioned advice for you guys, and these things were definitely taught to me, but I really believe in these 5 things, is never be afraid to ask questions, ever, ever, ever. If you are nervous to ask a question in front of a classroom, just go up and talk to the professor afterwards. There's also technology now, emails. Please, these guys and gals, they are so full of so much good information. I mean, I wish I could just, you know, put up, you know, just drain it and just get it somehow directly into my brain, because it's amazing the experiences they have and that they're here to support you, you know. Use them, they're there for you. Imagination in science is everything. People might tell you, no, that is ridiculous. So what? Everything's ridiculous, right? It's research, and that's why it's called research. It hasn't been proven yet. You still are looking to prove it. And if it's ever really proven, who knows? But if you love it, keep going for it. Trust your gut, because a lot of times your gut is right. Hard work will pay off in the end, I promise. It might not work out the way that you think it needs to work out right now, but it will work out one way or another. Humility is a virtue. As you become successful, as I'm sure, as I have seen, many of you are going to become. You guys are sharp. McNair fellows are sharp. I recruited them to Emory. There's like no others, you know. It's really exciting. But humility, always be humble, because there's always going to be somebody smarter than you. There's always going to be somebody just a little bit quicker, a little bit sharper, but that's okay, because you have your own unique things to bring to it, like an artistic capability, right? All of this artistic imagination that I have is actually paid off now because I do anatomy, and so I'm like a photographer, right? I have to take pictures of neurons and cells and try to get on the front cover of neuroscience, which we'll see. But you know, it's good to have goals, right? So, but it's always good to be humble, because you're going to run into people who are not, and it's unfortunate, but you just stay your course. And also, sometimes, just be quiet and listen. I'm a jabber, as you can tell, but sometimes I just had to be quiet and listen, especially to Millie, Alexia, my mom, my boyfriend Todd, anybody, you know, a lot of my old professors here, you know, because people have things to say. Sometimes the best time, even if you're disagreeing with somebody at a talk, just kind of sit back, take notes, and just think about it. You know, you don't want to be disrespectful to your colleagues. You never know if you're going to collaborate with them someday. And last but not least, of course, follow your dreams wherever they may lead you. As Ronald E. McNair said, you know, follow those dreams. You have to have a dream. Set a goal. Even if it's a small-term goal, it's still a dream. It's still significant. And now this is advice from others, and I just love these quotes. And this is almost the last slide. Gaze upward, look inward, reach outward, press forward. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Amen. It is not the answers you give, but the questions you ask, because most of the time we don't have the answers yet. But what questions are you asking? Research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. And that I have found to be true. Learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. The important thing is to not stop questioning. That was Albert Einstein. So thank you for your time, and best wishes to all of you guys. I know that you're going to accomplish great and beautiful things. And you know, like the rhesus macaque monkeys have to help each other out, scratching each other's back. I'm telling you, please, I will scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. I will help you if you guys need anything at all, please. And you can ask Millie for my contact information if you don't have a pen or whatnot. And I just tell me that you're from McNair at UMass, so I remember, and I answer your email. And keep emailing me if I don't respond quickly, because I just have a lot of emails, but I will try to help you in whatever way, especially if somebody's interested in environmental health sciences, I heard. Well, my advisor is the chair. So like I'm saying, hint, hint, just give me an email. So anyways, thanks for your time, guys. Thanks, guys. Don't make me cry. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. So every year I come to the McNair dinner, and even as a McNair student, the moment right before our scholars receive their awards for their hard work, and right after the keynote speaker delivers their speech is always the moment of inspiration. Y'all feeling inspired? Any inspired people in the room? That was amazing. Amazing. So I studied psychology here and did an abnormal psychology class, so I was able to follow along. You know, she said synapses. Yeah, I remember that. In a little bit that I retained, I retained a lot more, but I'll be humble. In a little bit that I retained in listening to Kaylinda's research, let me tell you something. She's doing big things. That's huge. That is huge. That is amazing. And that is a McNair student. So you can not only soar and go wherever you want to go, but you are going to change the world. I didn't even know that Parkinson's was that there are environmental implications of Parkinson's disease. That's amazing. So at this time, so I'm a theater artist. I'm a theater director. So to move into our next segment, and we've been talking about art and science, and Millie asked me to host this thing, and I said, okay, can I improvise? Can we do a little bit of improvisation? So those of you who are the hard scientists, you took away a lot from that speech, but Kaylinda gave 5 key steps. And we're gonna do a little bit of improvisation right now, because this is a I'm hearing young people in the room, hard scientists in the room, and I just wanna ask everyone to repeat after me. The success comes when we, 1, ask questions, so use our imaginations, work hard, retain our humility. Say it like that, retain our humility, because we're all humble. Listen quietly. And I said 5 steps, but there were 6 steps that Kaylinda gave us. And follow our dreams. Isn't that amazing? Thank you for following that improv. That was awesome. You guys are excellent. So, speaking of improvisations, one thing that every McNair student knows is that we have to live prepared. We have to be excellent at all times. Because Millicent Riggins will call on you to do things when you do not know. So at this time, I would like to ask Miss Melissa Cruz to come on stage and officially, is she here? Did she step out? She's still with it? And look, she's excellent, I told you. And she's surprised. And so we're gonna ask Melissa to come and give a proper McNair thank you to Dr. Kaylinda Gonzalez.
And oh, did she surprise me? I was like over there in the corner sipping my coffee, being like, okay, gotta stay awake. I can do this, need to study more. Well, you know, thank you so much, Dr. Kaylinda Gonzalez, for coming here today and telling us about your struggles and your accomplishments, because your accomplishments are so amazing. You know, you're doing this amazing work, but you overcame so much, you know, just personally, physically, going from one, you know, I want to be a physical therapist. Oh no, I do not want to be a physical therapist. Oh, I want to be a doctor. And it's like, oh, wait. I'm kind of going in this direction. And I think as a lot of the students here, we can all relate to starting off in one field, feeling very strongly about it, and then having life coming your way, and you're just sitting taken aback, and you're like, oh, maybe I need to switch for directions. And the way that you've shown that you've taken those moments where life is like, maybe this isn't for you, maybe you should go in this route,
and you've taken that in stride, and you haven't been like, well, I just spent 4 years in physical therapy school. I'm just gonna finish it because I need to finish this. You actually went for your dreams, and that's really important and really powerful, because at the end of the day, you feel accomplished because you did what you wanted to do, no matter how ridiculous it could seem practically, and how big of a goal it was. And I am very glad that you came here. You finally got your PhD, and I'm very glad that Mrs. Riggins was right and told you to, you're gonna end up as a doctoral student, and you're gonna be doing X, Y, and Z, and you're gonna be doing great things. And you just shown us all here today that you will continue to do great things. And I'd like to thank you for your advice, and thank you for your time, for coming down here and inspiring us to really pursue our true dreams, no matter how difficult it can be. So thank you so much on behalf of McNair for coming down here today, and for everyone here who's present supporting our students.
At this time, I would like to welcome the founding coordinator of the McNair program, Mrs. Millicent Riggins, Dr. Hager, and the powerhouse woman that is Miss Roxanne Harvey, also a McNair alum. Also a McNair. So one thing about being in McNair, whether you graduate or you didn't, whether you graduated like these two excellent people, or you took another path and didn't graduate like me, but you remained excellent, is that you never escape McNair. Millie puts you to work. Sometimes she pays you and sometimes she doesn't. This one gets paid. So, so at this time, I'd like to turn this over for the award presentations to our amazing scholars.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Are you too full? Okay. Before I get started, let's give Akiva a round of applause for a wonderful job. I always tell her that she's made for the stage, so I use her when I can. Thank you so much for filling in for me. I'm feeling extremely tired tonight because we've been working on a APR report that was due in Washington today. And somehow, I didn't know it was that difficult to do with the changes that were in place. But one thing about TRIO, I don't know if you know anything about TRIO programs. McNair is a TRIO program. Student Support Services is a TRIO program. And what those programs do is, what we believe in is helping students. We don't do this for our glory, but in order to help students. And so while I was struggling to get this done, Dr. Susan Graham from SSS stepped in, and she came in, and she was in my office this morning at 1 o'clock, helping me to get this done. So I want to stand up. I want you to stand so I can recognize you for your help, Susan. Thank you so much. And so that's what TRIO is about. We get together and we help each other, and I really appreciate you for helping out. And I also want to thank all the other professional staff who have always come out to help us celebrate this wonderful occasion. Albus, thank you for coming. And one of the things that I know, thank you, Albus, what I don't like to do is to start calling names, because I'm getting older each year and I do forget names. But I do thank you, the parents and friends and families that are here tonight. Ms. Kalinda, would you please come here? Yes, ma'am. I love her. Because yes, she listened. And now she's doctor now. And I just so appreciate your talk tonight. That was wonderful. I could understand what you were saying. Oh. So let's give her another round of applause. Thank you. And what I have for her is an award, and it reads, presented to Kalinda A. Gonzalez, PhD, and I want to say Dr. Gonzalez, in recognition of your achievement extending from excellence in science at UMass Boston through graduate studies completion, McNair Program 2030. Thank you so much. And isn't it nice?
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'm so proud of her. Oh, McNair. Now I'm going to ask if Dr. Hager would come and help me to hand out the awards. And for each name that's called, I would like a family member to come and robe his or her graduate, and then the stolen a medallion. So a parent will come, a family member will come with the graduate, okay? The first one, I don't care. The first is Marie Joseph. She brought her chair in section. And this award reads, the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program at UMass Boston, Certificate of Achievement, awarded to Marie Joseph for your diligence and commitment towards attaining excellence in higher education. Congratulations. You can just stand, are we taking pictures? You can just stand right there. Right there. Next one. Christopher Mercedes. Christopher is a very talented student, but very hard to find at times. I'm so glad you're here, Chris. And it says, for your diligence. It says, for your diligence and commitment towards attaining excellence in higher education. Congratulations. Chris Melly Paul. So Chris Melly will stay and do her master's here at UMass, and then she will go off and to Dr. Gonzalez's lab at Columbia. For your diligence and commitment. For your diligence and commitment towards attaining excellence in higher education. Congratulations. Rebecca. Awesome. She'll be back to also be a keynote speaker. It says, for your diligence and commitment towards attaining excellence in higher education. Congratulations. And Miss Rose. Is your faculty mentor still here? He's gone? So good. Yeah. This young lady, she's always busy in the lab. Normally we have, all the students have to meet with me once per week. You remember? Okay, she will never make it because you know what? She's always in the lab. So you will see her also. that. And last but not least, Mr. Tomas Hernandez. And it says, for your diligence and commitment towards attaining excellence in higher education. Congratulations. I didn't want to give him a kiss. You know why? Because we had a symposium a week ago. And I don't know if he was trying to get out of doing his presentation, or did he really have a pneumonia? I had pneumonia. So I'm not going to go near close to him. So I'm going to believe that you had pneumonia, so you won't have a kiss. Okay, so it was very difficult this year. Each year we do give an award for the best presentation. And it was very difficult this year because everyone was actually very, very good. But one person stood out, and that person is Rose. And it reads again, in recognition of your excellence in scientific research, an exceptional presentation at the McNair Senior Research Symposium, May 9th, 2014. Congratulations. Okay. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause, please. I just want to let you know that next year will be our 25th anniversary for McNair. And so we'll be planning to have a really extravagant event for next year. And in thinking of that, I want to also recognize tonight Dr. Yvonne Smykel and her husband Errol Smykel. They're here every year to support us. Dr. Ambrose Gerald and Dr. Anna Gerald, again, thank you. And we had a wonderful time on Nantucket this year because we're planning this anniversary event coming up. I want to say thank you all for coming, for making this another successful year. And for all the alumni that are here, thank you, and good luck in graduate school.